Picture this. It's nearly midnight at Hogwarts, and while most students are fast asleep in their dormitories, you found yourself drawn to the ancient corridors of the castle. The stone walls seem to whisper secrets as you make your way through dimly lit passages, your footsteps echoing softly against centuries-old flagstones. Tonight isn't just any night. Tonight, you have a particularly challenging transfiguration essay due tomorrow, and despite your best efforts throughout the week, you're nowhere near finished. The Hogwarts Library after hours is a completely different world from the bustling study space it becomes during the day. Gone are the hurried scratches of quills, the whispered conversations between classmates, and the occasional stern shush from Madame Pince. Instead, what greets you is something far more enchanting, a sanctuary of knowledge, wrapped in the most profound, comforting silence you've ever experienced. As you push open the heavy oak doors, they creak just slightly, the sound barely disturbing the cathedral-like atmosphere within. The library stretches before you like a vast cathedral of learning, its towering shelves disappearing into shadow above. Floating candles hover throughout the space, their warm golden light creating pools of illumination that seem to dance and flicker with each gentle air current. The flames cast moving shadows across the leather-bound spines of thousands upon thousands of books, creating an almost hypnotic pattern that draws you deeper into this magical realm. Your breath forms the faintest wisp in the cool night air as you step inside, the temperature noticeably cooler than the heated corridors you've just left behind. There's something absolutely perfect about this contrast. The crisp air keeps you alert, while the warm candlelight creates a cocoon of comfort around each study area. You can smell the rich aroma of old parchment, leather bindings, and that distinctive scent of aged ink that seems to permeate every corner of this ancient repository. Tonight, you're not alone in seeking the library's nocturnal embrace. A few other dedicated students have claimed their own quiet corners, each one absorbed in their own academic pursuits. There's a 7th-year Ravenclaw hunched over what appears to be an advanced arithmancy textbook, her quill moving in careful, calculated strokes across her parchment. Near one of the tall windows, a Hufflepuff student has surrounded herself with no fewer than 7 different herbology texts, clearly preparing for tomorrow's practical examination on dangerous magical plants. But perhaps the most intriguing sight is the solitary figure seated at one of the round tables near the restricted section. A Slytherin student, judging by the green trim on their robes, has created what can only be described as a fortress of ancient runes dictionaries and translation guides. They work with an intensity that's both admirable and slightly intimidating, their concentration so complete that they seem utterly oblivious to the world around them. You make your way through the maze of tables and chairs, your footsteps muffled by the thick Persian rugs that cover portions of the stone floor. These aren't just decorative additions, they serve a practical purpose, absorbing sound and creating natural quiet zones throughout the vast space. As you walk, you notice how each section of the library seems to have its own microclimate of tranquility. The charms section, with its cheerful yellow and gold accents, radiates a warm, welcoming energy, even in the subdued lighting. Here, the books seem almost eager to share their secrets, their pages practically humming with contained magic. You pause for a moment to run your fingers along a row of spines, feeling the subtle tingle of enchantment that emanates from volumes dedicated to household spells, entertainment charms, and protective wards. Moving deeper into the library, you find yourself in the potions section, where the very air seems thicker somehow. The books here abound in darker leather, many showing the wear and tear of countless hands seeking knowledge about brewing, ingredient preparation, and the delicate art of magical chemistry. A few of the more advanced texts actually emit faint wisps of colored smoke from their closed pages, creating an almost ethereal atmosphere that perfectly complements the midnight hour. But it's the transfiguration section where you ultimately decide to settle for the evening. This area feels appropriately serious for the challenging essay that awaits your attention. Yet there's something oddly comforting about being surrounded by texts that deal with the fundamental magic of change and transformation. Perhaps there's something poetic about working on an essay about magical metamorphosis while sitting among books that themselves seem to shimmer and shift slightly in the candlelight. You select a table positioned perfectly between two towering bookcases, creating a natural alcove that feels both private and connected to the greater library around you. The wooden surface is smooth and warm beneath your hands, polished by decades of student use until it gleams like honey in the flickering light. Someone has carved tiny initials into one corner of the table, so small and faded that they're barely visible unless you know exactly where to look. As you begin unpacking your supplies, each item creates its own small symphony of sounds. The soft thud of your transfiguration textbook as it settles onto the table. The gentle clink of your inkwell as you position it within easy reach. The whisper of parchment as you unroll a fresh scroll, ready to finally tackle Professor McGonagall's assignment on the theoretical principles underlying human transfiguration. The essay question stares back at you from your notes. Discuss the ethical implications and practical limitations of human transfiguration, with particular attention to the distinction between animagus transformation and forced transfiguration of others. It's exactly the sort of complex, nuanced question that Professor McGonagall is famous for posing. One that requires not just memorization of facts, but genuine critical thinking and analysis. You dip your quill into the ink, feeling the familiar weight of it in your hand, and begin to write. The soft scratch of quill against parchment creates a rhythmic counterpoint to the ambient sounds of the library. Somewhere in the distance, you can hear the faint rustle of pages turning as another student works through their own academic challenges. The sound is oddly comforting, a reminder that you're part of a community of learners, even in these solitary midnight hours. As you work, you become aware of the subtle ways the library seems to respond to your presence. The floating candle nearest your table burns just a bit brighter, as if sensing your need for optimal reading light. The air around you feels perfectly still, creating an environment where concentration comes naturally and distractions seem to fade into irrelevance. Your first paragraph takes shape slowly, each word carefully chosen as you establish your thesis about the fundamental differences between voluntary and involuntary magical transformation. The concepts are complex, requiring you to weave together principles from multiple branches of magical theory, but somehow the midnight setting makes it easier to focus on these intricate ideas. The library's collection of transfiguration texts is truly impressive, spanning centuries of magical scholarship. Within arm's reach, you have access to everything from Emmerich Switch's early treatises on elementary transformation to Circe's controversial writings on human to animal metamorphosis. Each book represents years of magical research and experimentation, their combined knowledge creating an almost tangible presence in the air around you. As you delve deeper into your research, pulling references from multiple sources, you begin to appreciate why so many students find the library after hours to be their most productive time. There's something about the combination of silence, solitude, and the weight of centuries of accumulated wisdom that creates the perfect environment for serious academic work. The castle around you settles into its nighttime rhythms, Occasionally, you catch the distant sound of a portrait shifting in its frame, or the soft padding of the castle's cats as they patrol the corridors. These sounds don't disturb your concentration. Instead, they become part of the library's nocturnal symphony, a gentle reminder of the living, breathing nature of Hogwarts itself. Your essay begins to take real shape as you explore the historical context of human transfiguration laws, the magical theory behind the practice, and the ethical frameworks that govern its use. Each paragraph builds upon the last, creating a comprehensive examination of one of magic's most complex and controversial subjects. The candlelight continues to dance across your parchment as you work, creating a mesmerizing interplay of light and shadow that somehow enhances rather than distracts from your focus. This is exactly what you needed. Not just the quiet space to work, but this particular kind of magical quiet that only exists in places where knowledge and wonder intersect. Time seems to move differently in the library after midnight. Hours feel like minutes when you're completely absorbed in your work, yet each moment also stretches luxuriously, allowing you to savor the pure satisfaction of academic discovery. You find yourself settling into a rhythm that feels almost meditative. Research, write, pause to consider, then continue. The gentle scratch of your quill becomes as natural as breathing. The restricted section looms tantalizingly close to your chosen study spot, its dark shelves protected by heavy chains and warning signs. Even from this distance, you can sense the power emanating from those forbidden volumes. There's something thrilling about working so near to knowledge that's been deemed too dangerous for most students. It adds an edge of excitement to your otherwise scholarly evening. A reminder that magic contains depths and dangers that most people never encounter. You pause in your writing to stretch your fingers, cramped from holding the quill for so long. As you flex your hand, you notice how the candlelight catches the faint silver scars on your knuckles. Souvenirs from a particularly challenging Care of Magical Creatures lesson involving Cornish pixies. Everyone carries these small marks of their magical education, tiny reminders of lessons learned through experience rather than theory. The Hufflepuff student working on herbology has apparently found what she was looking for. You watch peripherally as she carefully copies a diagram of what appears to be a fully mature devil's snare, her attention completely focused on capturing every detail of the plant's dangerous tendrils. There's something beautiful about witnessing such dedicated scholarship, the way she treats each line and curve as if it might someday save someone's life, which, given the subject matter, it very well might. Your essay continues to evolve under your careful attention. The section on animagus transformations requires particular nuance. As you explore the years of preparation required, the complex registry system maintained by the ministry, and the profound personal changes that accompany the ability to shift between human and animal form. You find yourself drawing on Professor McGonagall's own transformation demonstrations, remembering the fluid grace with which she moved between her human and feline forms. The library's atmospheric magic seems to respond to the deepening night. The floating candles burn with an even steadier flame now, as if they've settled into their nocturnal rhythm. The shadows between the bookcases have grown deeper and more mysterious, creating pools of darkness that your imagination populates with all manner of magical possibilities. It's easy to picture ancient scholars working in these very same spots centuries ago, wrestling with the same fundamental questions about the nature of magical transformation. A soft sound draws your attention, the whispered turning of pages from somewhere deeper in the library. The sound is almost musical in the profound quiet. A gentle reminder that knowledge is being actively sought and absorbed throughout this vast space. You wonder what subjects occupy your fellow midnight scholars. What academic challenges have driven them to seek the library's nocturnal sanctuary? Your research takes you into increasingly specialized territory as you explore the theoretical frameworks that govern forced transfiguration. The ethical implications are staggering when you truly consider them. The violation of bodily autonomy, the psychological trauma of unwanted transformation, the legal and magical precedents that have evolved to prevent abuse of such powerful magic. Each source you consult adds new layers of complexity to your analysis. The Slytherin student, near the restricted section, has finally looked up from their ancient runes translations. They stretch languidly, then gather their materials with the satisfied air of someone who has accomplished their academic goals for the evening. As they pack their bag, you catch a glimpse of their work, intricate runic circles and complex symbolic relationships that speak to advanced magical theory. They nod politely in your direction before disappearing into the shadowy corridors beyond the library doors. This departure somehow makes the library feel even more intimate and personal. With fewer people sharing the space, it begins to feel almost like your private study, a magical realm that exists solely for your academic pursuits. The silence grows even more profound, broken only by the soft sounds of your own scholarly work and the distant settling of the ancient castle around you. You discover a particularly relevant passage in a text by Adalbert Waffling about the psychological effects of transformation magic. His research into the mental state of individuals who undergo repeated transfiguration provides exactly the theoretical framework you need for your discussion of ethical limitations. The passage is dense with technical terminology, but the core insight is profound. That transformation magic affects not just the physical form, but the very sense of self. As you incorporate Waffling's research into your essay, you become aware of how the library's energy shifts and flows around you. The books themselves seem to pulse gently with contained knowledge, creating an almost subliminal rhythm that complements your thinking process. It's as if the accumulated wisdom of centuries has created its own magical field, one that enhances concentration and promotes deep understanding. Your parchment scroll continues to fill with carefully reasoned arguments and detailed citations. The essay structure that seemed so daunting earlier in the week now feels natural and inevitable. Each paragraph flows logically from the last, building toward a comprehensive examination of your assigned topic. You find yourself making connections between different sources, synthesizing information in ways that surprise even you. The Ravenclaw student working on arithmancy has created what can only be described as a mathematical masterpiece across multiple sheets of parchment. Complex equations spiral across the pages in elaborate patterns, punctuated by geometric diagrams that seem to shift and pulse in the candlelight. The precision required for such work is staggering, yet she approaches each calculation with the calm confidence of someone completely in their element. A gentle breeze stirs through the library, though no windows appear to be open. This is simply part of the castle's natural magical circulation, the way Hogwarts breathes and lives around its inhabitants. The air movement is just strong enough to make the candle flames dance more vigorously, sending shadows scurrying across the walls like playful spirits. Your discussion of the legal precedents surrounding human transfiguration leads you into some of the darker chapters of magical history. The cases documented in these dusty tomes speak to the very real dangers of unregulated transformation magic. Wizards who lost themselves in animal forms, victims of malicious transfiguration who never fully recovered their original shapes, entire communities transformed as weapons of war. These historical examples provide sobering context for the strict regulations that govern such magic in the modern era. The weight of this knowledge settles around you as you write, adding gravitas to your academic exercise. You're not just completing an assignment, you're engaging with fundamental questions about the responsible use of magical power. Professor McGonagall's insistence on thorough theoretical understanding before practical application makes perfect sense in this context. The library's collection includes several restricted texts that you can only access with special permission, their covers marked with warning symbols and protective charms. Even these censored volumes contribute to the atmosphere of serious scholarship that permeates the space. Knowledge, the library seems to whisper, is powerful enough to require careful guardianship. As you work deeper into the night, you begin to understand why so many great magical scholars were known to be creatures of nocturnal habit. There's something about the midnight hours that strips away distractions and pretense, leaving only the pure pursuit of understanding. Your essay evolves from a mere academic requirement into something approaching genuine scholarship, a thoughtful contribution to the ongoing discourse about magical ethics. The hours blend together in the most wonderful way as you lose yourself completely in the rhythm of research and writing. Your quill moves steadily across the parchment, occasionally pausing as you consider the perfect word or phrase to capture a particularly complex concept. There's something deeply satisfying about watching your thoughts take physical form on the page, each carefully crafted sentence adding to the growing body of your argument. The Hufflepuff student has finally conquered her herbology challenge, rolling up her diagrams with a quiet sigh of accomplishment. As she gathers her materials, you catch sight of her work, incredibly detailed botanical illustrations that would rival anything found in the professional journals. The dedication required to achieve such precision speaks to the kind of scholarly commitment that thrives in these midnight hours, when perfectionism can flourish without the pressure of daytime deadlines. With her departure, the library feels even more expansive and mysterious. The empty tables around you seem to invite the imagination to populate them with the ghosts of students past, centuries of young minds who sought these same quiet corners to wrestle with academic challenges. You wonder how many transformation essays have been written at this very table, how many future ministers of magic or renowned magical theorists once sat exactly where you're sitting now. Your exploration of forced transfiguration cases leads you to a particularly disturbing account from the early 1800s, when a rogue wizard attempted to transform an entire village as part of some twisted experiment in social control. The meticulous documentation of the victim's recovery process provides invaluable insight into the long-term psychological effects of unwanted transformation. As you carefully cite this source, you're struck by the weight of responsibility that comes with such powerful magic. The floating candles have settled into their deepest nocturnal glow now, creating pools of warm amber light that seem to pulse gently with their own heartbeat. Each flame burns without flickering, as steady and reliable as lighthouses guiding ships through dangerous waters. The consistency of this illumination creates the perfect environment for sustained concentration, eliminating the eye strain that might otherwise interrupt your scholarly flow. A soft scratching sound echoes from somewhere among the towering bookshelves, probably just one of the library's resident mice making their nightly rounds through the stacks. These small creatures are as much a part of the library's ecosystem as the books themselves. Tiny guardians who help maintain the delicate balance between preservation and decay that keeps ancient texts readable for new generations of students. Your essay's central argument begins to crystallize as you weave together the various threads of your research. The distinction between voluntary and involuntary transformation isn't just a matter of consent, you realize, but touches on fundamental questions about identity, autonomy, and the very nature of what makes us human. These insights feel hard-won, emerging naturally from hours of careful consideration rather than being forced or artificial. The restricted section continues to exert its mysterious pull on your peripheral awareness. Even though you don't need any of those dangerous texts for your current assignment, there's something thrilling about working so close to forbidden knowledge. The chains that secure those shelves seem to whisper of secrets too dangerous for casual study, adding an edge of excitement to your otherwise scholarly evening. You pause to flex your writing hand, working out the small cramps that come from hours of quill work. The repetitive motion of dipping, writing, and redipping has become as natural as breathing, but your fingers need occasional relief from the precise grip required for academic writing. As you stretch, you notice how the silence has grown even deeper, if such a thing is possible. The Ravenclaw student working on arithmancy has reached some kind of breakthrough in her calculations. You watch peripherally as she sits back in her chair with a satisfied expression, surveying the complex mathematical landscape she's created across multiple sheets of parchment. The equations seem to form their own artistic patterns in the candlelight, beauty emerging from pure logical structure. Your discussion of animagus transformations requires careful navigation of competing theoretical frameworks. Some scholars argue that the voluntary nature of the transformation makes it fundamentally different from other forms of human transfiguration, while others contend that the underlying magical principles are identical regardless of consent. You find yourself developing your own perspective on this debate, supported by evidence from multiple sources, but ultimately reflecting your growing understanding of magical ethics. The library's atmosphere seems to deepen and intensify as the night progresses. The shadows between the bookcases have taken on an almost tangible quality, creating discrete zones of mystery that your imagination eagerly populates with possibilities. It's easy to picture ancient scholars emerging from these dark corners, their arms full of dusty tomes and their minds burning with newfound knowledge. A distant bell chimes somewhere in the castle, probably the clock tower marking another hour's passage. The sound is muffled by stone walls and magical dampening charms, reaching you as little more than a gentle vibration in the air. Time moves differently in spaces dedicated to learning, you've discovered. Hours can feel like minutes when you're completely absorbed in academic work, yet each moment also stretches luxuriously, allowing for deep contemplation. Your research into the historical development of transfiguration lore reveals fascinating patterns of social change reflected in magical legislation. The gradual expansion of protections for transformation victims parallels broader movements toward individual rights and bodily autonomy in wizarding society. These connections between magical practice and social progress provide rich material for your analysis. The remaining Ravenclaw student has begun packing her materials, rolling up her complex calculations with the careful precision of someone who knows exactly how much work those equations represent. As she secures her parchments with a ribbon, you catch a glimpse of her satisfied expression, the look of someone who has successfully conquered a particularly challenging intellectual problem. There's something beautiful about witnessing such pure academic achievement. Her departure leaves you as the sole occupant of this vast repository of knowledge, at least in the sections visible from your chosen study spot. The solitude feels profound rather than lonely, as if you've been granted exclusive access to centuries of accumulated wisdom. The books surrounding you seem to pulse gently with contained knowledge, creating an almost subliminal rhythm that enhances your concentration. Your essay's conclusion begins to take shape as you synthesize the various arguments you've developed throughout your analysis. The ethical implications of human transfiguration extend far beyond simple questions of consent. touching on fundamental issues of identity, autonomy, and the responsible use of magical power. These insights feel genuinely earned rather than imposed, emerging naturally from your careful examination of the source material. The floating candles burn lower now, but their light remains steady and warm. Someone, probably Madame Pince or one of her assistants, has enchanted them to maintain optimal illumination throughout the night, ensuring that dedicated students like yourself can pursue their studies without interruption. The thoughtfulness of this arrangement speaks to the deep respect for learning that permeates every aspect of Hogwarts. You discover a particularly relevant passage in Wilbert Slinkhard's controversial work on defensive transfiguration theory. While Slinkhard's practical teachings were widely criticized as inadequate, his theoretical analysis of transformation magic's psychological effects provides exactly the kind of scholarly framework your essay requires. The irony isn't lost on you. Sometimes the most valuable insights come from unexpected sources. As you incorporate Slinkhard's perspective into your argument, you become aware of subtle changes in the library's energy. The air feels somehow thicker with possibility, as if the accumulated knowledge of centuries has reached some kind of critical mass. It's a fanciful thought, perhaps, but one that feels entirely appropriate in a place where magic and learning intersect so profoundly. Your discussion of the Ministry's registration requirements for animagi leads you into complex questions about governmental oversight of personal magical abilities. The balance between public safety and individual privacy becomes particularly delicate when dealing with transformation magic, where the potential for both beneficial and harmful applications exists in every spell. These nuanced considerations add depth to your analysis while highlighting the ongoing challenges faced by magical lawmakers. The castle's nighttime sounds create a gentle backdrop to your scholarly work. The distant settling of ancient stones, the soft padding of nocturnal creatures in the walls, the occasional creak of old wood adjusting to temperature changes. These sounds don't disturb your concentration. Instead, they become part of the library's nocturnal symphony, a reminder that you're working within a living, breathing, magical environment. Your parchment scroll continues to grow as you add detailed citations and supporting evidence for each major point in your argument. The physical act of writing has become meditative, the gentle scratch of quill on parchment, providing a rhythmic counterpoint to your thinking process. Each completed paragraph feels like a small victory, a tangible step forward in your academic journey. The restricted section's mysterious presence continues to add an element of excitement to your evening. The heavy chains securing those dangerous volumes seem to shift slightly in the candlelight. Though this is probably just an optical illusion created by the dancing flames. Still, there's something thrilling about working so close to knowledge deemed too dangerous for casual study. A reminder that magic contains depths and complexities that most people never encounter. Your exploration of transformation magic's theoretical foundations leads you to some of the field's most fundamental questions. What constitutes the essential self that persists through physical change? How do we maintain psychological continuity when our very bodies are altered by magic? These philosophical dimensions of transfiguration theory add richness to your analysis, while demonstrating the subject's connections to broader questions about consciousness and identity. The library seems to breathe around you as you work, the magical circulation systems maintaining perfect temperature and air quality throughout the vast space. This environmental control isn't just about comfort. It's essential for preserving the ancient texts that form the foundation of magical education. Every detail of the library's design reflects centuries of accumulated wisdom about creating optimal conditions for learning and preservation. Your essay's penultimate section examines the role of intention in transformation magic, exploring how the caster's mental state and moral purpose affect both the process and outcome of transfiguration spells. This analysis requires careful balance between magical theory and ethical philosophy, drawing connections between abstract principles and practical applications. The complexity of these relationships speaks to the sophisticated understanding required for mastery of advanced magic. As you near the completion of your work, you become aware of the profound satisfaction that comes from sustained intellectual effort. The essay that seemed so daunting earlier in the week has become a comprehensive examination of one of magic's most complex subjects. Your arguments are well supported, your analysis is thorough, and your conclusions feel both original and well-grounded in established scholarship. The floating candles seem to burn just a bit brighter as you approach the final paragraphs, as if the library itself recognizes and celebrates the completion of serious academic work. This fanciful interpretation feels entirely appropriate in a place where magic suffuses every stone and timber, where the boundary between the practical and the mystical dissolves into irrelevance. Your concluding thoughts synthesize the evening's research into a coherent statement about the fundamental importance of ethical considerations in all applications of transformation magic. The power to alter physical form carries with it profound responsibilities that extend far beyond technical competence. These insights feel hard-won, emerging from hours of careful study and reflection rather than being imposed from external sources. The silence surrounding you feels different now. Not the expectant quiet of beginning work, but the satisfied stillness that follows genuine accomplishment. Your essay is complete, your research thorough, and your understanding of the subject measurably deeper than it was when you first entered the library hours ago. The midnight study session has transformed not just your academic assignment, but your own relationship with the complex ethical dimensions of magical practice. The satisfaction of completing your essay settles over you like a warm blanket, but you're not quite ready to leave this magical sanctuary. There's something addictive about the library's midnight atmosphere, the way it transforms ordinary study into something approaching meditation. You set down your quill and lean back in your chair, allowing yourself a moment to appreciate what you've accomplished. Your completed parchment lies before you, covered in neat lines of carefully crafted arguments and meticulous citations. The ink glistens slightly in the candlelight, still drying from your final sentences. 23 inches of thoughtful analysis on one of Transfiguration's most complex topics. Professor McGonagall will be pleased, but more importantly, you feel genuinely proud of the work you've produced in these quiet hours. The library seems to acknowledge your achievement with subtle shifts in its magical ambience. The floating candles burn with renewed steadiness, their warm light creating perfect reading conditions even as the night deepens. The air circulation charms adjust themselves automatically, maintaining the ideal temperature for extended study. It's as if Hogwarts itself recognizes and rewards dedication to learning. You roll up your completed essay carefully, securing it with a length of ribbon you've been carrying for this purpose. The physical act of rolling the parchment feels ceremonial somehow, marking the transition from active creation to finished work. Your Transfiguration textbook sits nearby, its pages filled with bookmarks and marginal notes accumulated over weeks of preparation. The book has become a trusted companion, its familiar weight and worn binding as comforting as an old friend. But rather than pack up immediately, you find yourself drawn to explore more of the library's nocturnal mysteries. With your primary academic obligation fulfilled, You can afford to indulge your curiosity about this magical space and its hidden corners. The empty tables around you seem to invite investigation, each one potentially holding its own secrets or optimal study conditions. Rising from your chair, you stretch muscles that have grown stiff from hours of focused writing. The movement feels luxurious after the concentrated stillness of academic work. Your joints pop softly as you extend your arms above your head, working out the kinks that accumulate during extended periods of scholarly concentration. The simple physical relief is deeply satisfying. The library stretches before you in all directions, its full scope more apparent now that you're standing and moving freely. Towering bookcases create natural pathways and alcoves, each section devoted to different branches of magical knowledge. The herbology section glows with a subtle green radiance emanating from texts about living plants. The astronomy corner seems to shimmer with captured starlight, while the Defense Against the Dark Arts collection maintains an appropriately serious and slightly ominous atmosphere. Your footsteps are muffled by the thick Persian rugs as you begin a slow circuit of the library's main floor. Each section has its own character and energy, reflecting the nature of the knowledge contained within its books. The charm section feels light and playful, its volumes practically humming with contained spells and enchantments. Running your fingers along these spines, you can feel the gentle tingle of magic waiting to be released through study and practice. The ancient runes section draws your attention next, its mysterious symbols carved into the wooden shelf ends seeming to shift and dance in the candlelight. These aren't mere decorations, but functional magical scripts that help organize and preserve the knowledge contained within. Some of the older texts here predate Hogwarts itself, their bindings showing the careful attention of generations of magical librarians. A soft sound catches your attention, the whisper of pages turning somewhere deeper in the library's maze of shelves. You pause to listen, wondering if another dedicated student has chosen to spend these midnight hours in scholarly pursuit. The sound comes again, barely audible but unmistakably the rustle of parchment against parchment. Following your curiosity, you move deeper into the stacks. The source of the sound remains elusive, always seeming to come from just around the next corner or behind the next towering shelf. This isn't frustrating though. It adds to the library's mysterious charm. Perhaps it's simply the books themselves, their pages stirring with magical energy as knowledge seeks to share itself with worthy students. In a place like Hogwarts, such fanciful explanations often prove more accurate than mundane ones. You discover a small reading alcove tucked between the potions and herbology sections, furnished with a single comfortable armchair and a low table perfect for spreading out research materials. The space feels incredibly intimate and private, like a secret study room known only to the most dedicated scholars. A floating candle hovers nearby, its flame burning with particular steadiness, as if this spot has been optimized for serious academic work. The view from this alcove encompasses a significant portion of the library's main floor, allowing you to observe the interplay of light and shadow throughout the vast space. From here, the floating candles look like a constellation of earthbound stars, their warm glow creating pools of illumination connected by mysterious pathways of shadow. The overall effect is breathtakingly beautiful, transforming a functional study space into something approaching art. Settling into the armchair, you allow yourself to simply absorb the library's nocturnal atmosphere without the pressure of academic deadlines. This is pure indulgence, the luxury of being surrounded by unlimited knowledge without the obligation to immediately consume it. The books surrounding you represent centuries of magical research and discovery, their combined wisdom creating an almost tangible presence in the air. The silence here is different from anywhere else in the castle. It's not empty or dead, but filled with potential energy, like the moment before a symphony begins. Every book contains stories, spells, theories, and discoveries waiting to be rediscovered by curious minds. The accumulated knowledge of generations seems to hum just below the threshold of hearing, creating a subtle vibration that resonates in your bones. Your mind begins to wander, following academic tangents and connections that would have distracted you from your essay earlier, but now feel like pleasant intellectual exploration. The ethical questions raised by transformation magic connect to broader philosophical issues about identity and consciousness. How much can we change before we stop being ourselves? Do our thoughts define us more than our physical forms? These questions lead naturally to considerations of other magical disciplines. Legilimency and occlumency deal with the privacy and protection of thoughts and memories. Magical contracts and binding oaths explore the relationship between intention and obligation. The study of magical creatures raises questions about consciousness and communication across species boundaries. All of magic, you realize, ultimately deals with fundamental questions about what it means to exist and relate to others. The restricted section looms tantalizingly close to your current position, its heavy chains and warning notices adding an element of danger to the otherwise scholarly atmosphere. From here, you can see portions of the Forbidden Collection, ancient tomes bound in unusual materials, their very presence seeming to distort the air around them. These books contain knowledge deemed too dangerous for most students, magic that requires not just skill, but wisdom to handle safely. A gentle breeze stirs through the library, though no windows appear to be open. This is simply part of Hogwarts' natural magical circulation, the way the castle breathes and lives around its inhabitants. The air movement is just strong enough to make the candle flames dance more vigorously, sending shadows scurrying across the walls like playful spirits. The effect is hypnotic, creating patterns of light and darkness that seem almost alive. You notice a small brass plaque mounted on the wall near your alcove, so tarnished with age that its inscription is barely legible. Squinting in the candlelight, you can just make out the words, "In memory of Cornelius Fudge, class of 1847, who spent more nights in this library than his dormitory." The plaque speaks to a tradition of midnight scholarship stretching back generations, connecting you to countless students who have sought knowledge in these quiet hours. The thought of all those previous scholars is oddly comforting. You imagine them sitting in this very chair, wrestling with their own academic challenges and discoveries. Some probably went on to become famous magical theorists or ministry officials. Others likely lived quieter lives, using their hard-won knowledge to improve their communities in small but meaningful ways. All were connected by their willingness to sacrifice sleep for understanding. Your completed essay seems to pulse with satisfied energy from your bag, its academic mission accomplished, but its intellectual legacy just beginning. The research you've conducted tonight will inform your thinking about transformation magic for years to come. The connections you've made between theory and practice will influence how you approach other magical subjects. This is how true education works, not through isolated assignments, but through the gradual accumulation of interconnected understanding. The library's book collection extends far beyond what's immediately visible. You know that deeper in the stacks, accessible through narrow aisles and hidden staircases, lie specialized collections dealing with the most esoteric branches of magical knowledge. Texts on time magic, dimensional theory, and consciousness manipulation rest in climate-controlled chambers, their very existence known only to the most advanced researchers. Even the books you can see represent an almost overwhelming wealth of knowledge. Conservative estimates suggest the Hogwarts library contains over 100,000 volumes, not counting the periodicals, scrolls, and other documents stored in its archives. No single person could read everything contained within these walls, yet the attempt would be glorious. The pursuit of knowledge for its own sake represents one of humanity's noblest impulses. Your thoughts drift to the practical applications of what you've learned tonight. The ethical frameworks you've explored don't just apply to transformation uses of magical power. The historical magic, they provide templates for thinking about all lessons about the consequences of unchecked magical authority examples you've studied offer. These insights will prove valuable far beyond your transfiguration class. The floating candles have settled into their deepest nocturnal rhythm now, burning with flames so steady they might be carved from amber rather than actual fire. Their light creates perfect conditions for reading and writing, eliminating eye strain while providing enough illumination to work for hours without fatigue. The magical engineering required to achieve such consistent performance speaks to centuries of refinement and improvement. You realize that part of what makes the library so conducive to study is its complete separation from the outside world. Here, the ordinary concerns of daily life fade into irrelevance. There are no social pressures, no time constraints beyond your own choosing, no distractions except those you allow yourself to pursue. The space creates a perfect bubble for intellectual engagement, protected from everything except the pure pursuit of knowledge. The silence deepens around you, but it's a living silence filled with potential rather than emptiness. Somewhere in the distance, you can hear the almost inaudible whisper of magical preservation charms at work, protecting ancient texts from decay and damage. The spells are so subtle that most visitors never notice them, but they represent thousands of hours of careful magical engineering designed to preserve knowledge for future generations. Your exploration of the library has revealed dozens of specialized study areas, each optimized for different types of academic work. There are tables with built-in reference stands for comparing multiple texts simultaneously. Carrels with enhanced lighting charms for detailed manuscript examination. Group study areas with sound dampening spells that allow collaboration without disturbing other scholars. The variety speaks to the library's commitment to supporting every possible approach to learning. Near the divination section, you discover a small meditation area furnished with cushions and low tables, designed for the contemplative study required by prophetic magic. The space radiates tranquility, with subtle incense charms creating an atmosphere conducive to opening one's mind to mystical insights. Even if you're not particularly gifted at divination, the area's peaceful energy is deeply appealing. The Care of Magical Creatures section includes what can only be described as a mini habitat, complete with terrariums housing various magical insects and small creatures used for educational purposes. The display cases are enchanted to maintain perfect environmental conditions for their inhabitants, while allowing students to observe natural behaviours. Watching a family of bowtruckles tend their miniature tree home is surprisingly soothing. After hours of intensive writing, you find yourself drawn back toward the Transfiguration section, where your evening's work began. The familiar territory feels different now, transformed by your deeper understanding of the subject. The same books that seemed daunting earlier now appear as trusted resources, their knowledge more accessible thanks to your midnight efforts. This transformation of your relationship with the material represents genuine learning in action. A soft chiming sound echoes through the library, probably an automated spell reminding any remaining students about approaching curfew restrictions. The sound is gentle and musical rather than harsh or demanding, perfectly suited to the scholarly atmosphere. Even Hogwarts' timekeeping systems seem designed to support rather than interrupt the pursuit of knowledge. The realization that dawn is still hours away fills you with a sense of luxurious possibility. You could continue exploring the library's hidden corners, delve into subjects completely unrelated to your coursework, or simply sit in contemplative silence among the accumulated wisdom of centuries. The freedom to choose how to spend these precious midnight hours feels almost intoxicating. Your completed essay represents just the beginning of your engagement with transformation, magic's complex, ethical dimensions. The questions you've explored tonight will continue evolving as you gain more magical knowledge and life experience. This is what distinguishes true education from mere training. It creates frameworks for ongoing learning and growth rather than simply transferring static information. The library's magical atmosphere seems to intensify as the night deepens, as if the accumulated knowledge within its walls gains power from darkness and silence. Books that appear ordinary during busy daylight hours now seem to pulse with contained energy, their leather bindings warm to the touch and their pages whispering with possibilities. The boundary between the practical and the mystical grows increasingly thin. You settle more deeply into your chosen armchair, allowing the library's nocturnal magic to wash over you completely. This is what you came seeking, not just the completion of an academic assignment, but a genuine encounter with the transformative power of learning itself. In these quiet hours among the books, surrounded by centuries of accumulated wisdom, you feel connected to something larger than yourself. The pursuit of knowledge becomes not just an academic exercise, but a form of communion with the deepest mysteries of existence. The profound satisfaction of intellectual communion settles around you like a favorite cloak, warm and perfectly fitted to your current state of mind. This feeling goes beyond mere academic accomplishment. It's the deep contentment that comes from allowing your consciousness to merge with the collective wisdom housed within these ancient walls. Your essay may be complete, but your engagement with the library's mysteries has only just begun to unfold. Rising from the armchair with renewed energy, you decide to venture deeper into territories you've never properly explored. The advanced magical theory section beckons from across the main reading area, its shelves lined with texts that promise to challenge even the most dedicated scholars. These aren't the standardized textbooks used in regular coursework, but cutting-edge research publications and theoretical frameworks that push the very boundaries of magical understanding. As you approach this specialized collection, the air itself seems to thicken with intellectual density. The books here don't just contain information, they radiate the kind of concentrated thought that can only emerge from minds operating at the absolute peak of magical scholarship. Titles like Quantum Enchantment Theory and Multi-Dimensional Spellcasting Principles suggest realms of knowledge that most wizards never even glimpse, let alone master. Your fingers trace along the spine of a particularly intriguing volume. Consciousness and magical resonance, a unified field approach. The leather binding feels warm beneath your touch, as if the ideas contained within generate their own form of energy. Opening to a random page, you encounter diagrams that seem to shift and reconfigure themselves as you watch. Mathematical equations that appear to solve themselves while you observe. The complexity is both thrilling and humbling. These texts represent the absolute frontier of magical knowledge, concepts so advanced that they require years of preparation simply to comprehend. Yet being in their presence feels like standing at the edge of an infinite ocean of possibility, knowing that somewhere beyond the horizon lie answers to questions you haven't even learned to ask yet. A gentle rustling sound draws your attention deeper into the stacks. Following the subtle noise, you discover a section you've somehow never noticed before. Tucked away behind a particularly massive astronomy text collection. The shelves here are crafted from a different wood than the rest of the library. Something darker and more exotic that seems to absorb light rather than reflect it. The books in this hidden corner deal with subjects that exist at the intersection of magic and philosophy. The nature of magical consciousness, ethical frameworks for power-based societies, the responsibility of knowledge, a treatise on scholarly obligation. These aren't simply academic exercises, but profound meditations on the fundamental questions that face anyone who wields significant magical ability. One particular tome catches your attention. Midnight Reflections on Learning and Discovery by Adalbert Waffling. The author's name is familiar from your earlier research, but this appears to be a much more personal work than his technical writings on transformation theory. Opening the cover, you discover what appears to be a collection of essays written during long nights spent in various magical libraries around the world. The opening passage resonates with your current experience. There is a particular quality of silence that exists only in spaces dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge. It is not empty silence, but silence pregnant with possibility, filled with the whispered conversations between curious minds and accumulated wisdom. In these sacred hours between sunset and dawn, when the ordinary world surrenders its claims upon our attention, we become capable of insights that daylight learning cannot provide. Waffling's prose captures exactly what you've been feeling throughout this evening. The transformation from ordinary study time into something approaching mystical experience. The way midnight hours seem to dissolve the barriers between student and subject, allowing for a more intimate engagement with knowledge itself. His observations about the unique properties of nocturnal scholarship feel like validation of your own experience. Settling into a nearby reading chair, you continue through Waffling's reflections. He writes extensively about what he calls the midnight transformation, the way extended evening study sessions can fundamentally alter one's relationship with learning. According to his observations, students who regularly engage in serious nocturnal scholarship develop different cognitive patterns than their daylight-only peers. They become more comfortable with ambiguity, more willing to follow intellectual tangents, more capable of making unexpected connections between disparate fields of knowledge. His chapter on the library as sacred space particularly resonates with your current surroundings. Waffling argues that magical libraries function as more than mere repositories of information. They serve as consecrated ground where the accumulated wisdom of generations creates its own form of magical field. This field, he suggests, actually enhances cognitive function in ways that most scholars never consciously recognize. The theory explains the heightened sense of mental clarity you've experienced throughout the evening. It's not simply the quiet environment or lack of distractions that makes midnight study so productive. According to Waffling's research, the concentrated knowledge contained within library walls generates a subtle magical resonance that harmonizes with the human consciousness in ways that promote deeper understanding and more creative thinking. As you read, you become aware of subtle changes in your own mental state. Concepts that seemed challenging earlier in the evening now appear almost self-evident. Complex relationships between different branches of magical theory reveal themselves with startling clarity. Your mind feels more flexible, more capable of holding multiple perspectives simultaneously, while synthesizing them into coherent new insights. Waffling's observations about the social dimension of solitary study prove equally illuminating. He argues that midnight scholars, despite working alone, actually participate in a form of communion with every other serious student who has ever sought knowledge in similar circumstances. The dedication to learning for its own sake creates invisible bonds that transcend temporal and physical boundaries. This perspective transforms your understanding of your current solitude. Rather than being isolated, you're participating in an ancient tradition of scholarly devotion that connects you to countless generations of knowledge seekers. Every previous student who chose learning over sleep, who prioritized understanding over convenience, becomes your companion in this endeavor. The floating candles seem to burn even more steadily as you delve deeper into Waffling's work, as if the library itself approves of this particular line of inquiry. His writing style perfectly matches the contemplative mood of midnight study, thoughtful without being ponderous, challenging without being inaccessible, profound without losing touch with practical application. A particularly striking passage catches your attention. The true scholar learns not merely to accumulate facts, but to inhabit knowledge, to make wisdom a living part of their being, rather than an external collection of information. This transformation cannot be rushed or forced. It emerges naturally from sustained engagement with ideas, from the willingness to sit with difficult concepts until they reveal their deeper patterns. These words seem to speak directly to your evening's experience. Your transformation essay began as an external requirement, but through hours of careful research and writing, the ethical dimensions of magical practice have become part of your internal landscape. The knowledge has moved beyond mere academic exercise to become integrated into your personal framework for understanding the world. Waffling's insights about the relationship between knowledge and responsibility prove particularly relevant to your chosen field of study. He argues that magical education, perhaps more than any other form of learning, carries inherent ethical obligations. Every spell learned, every theoretical framework mastered, every practical technique developed increases the scholar's capacity to affect the world, and therefore their responsibility to use that capacity wisely. This perspective adds new dimensions to your understanding of why Professor McGonagall places such emphasis on theoretical foundations before practical application. It's not simply about safety, though that's certainly important. It's about ensuring that students develop the ethical frameworks necessary to handle the power that magical knowledge provides. The library's atmosphere seems to shift subtly as you contemplate these weighty matters. The shadows between the bookcases appear deeper, more mysterious, as if they're hiding additional layers of meaning that reveal themselves only to those willing to engage seriously with fundamental questions about knowledge and power. The very air feels charged with possibility and responsibility in equal measure. Closing Waffling's book with careful reverence, you find yourself changed by the encounter. His observations about midnight scholarship have provided a theoretical framework for understanding your own experience. But more importantly, they've opened new avenues for thinking about the purpose and practice of magical education. The evening's work has evolved from completing an assignment to participating in an ongoing conversation about the deepest questions of scholarly life. The advanced magical theory section beckons once again, but now you approach it with different eyes. The intimidating complexity of those cutting-edge texts no longer seems purely daunting. It represents the natural evolution of the learning process you've begun tonight. Every challenging concept mastered creates the foundation for engaging with even more sophisticated ideas. Your exploration leads you to a fascinating collection of comparative magical studies, texts that examine how different wizarding cultures approach similar theoretical problems. The diversity of perspectives is remarkable. what European magical theory treats as fundamental axioms, other traditions regard as questionable assumptions worthy of serious examination. One particularly intriguing volume compares transformation magic across 12 different cultural contexts. The ethical frameworks you've been studying represent just one approach among many possible ways of thinking about the responsible use of such power. Some cultures focus primarily on community consent rather than individual autonomy. Others emphasize the transformer's spiritual preparation and ritual purification. Still others treat transformation magic as inherently sacred, requiring specific ceremonial contexts for any application. These alternative perspectives don't invalidate your evening's work, but they do contextualize it within a much broader landscape of magical thought. The ethical questions you've been exploring have occupied serious thinkers across cultures and centuries, each group developing its own sophisticated responses to the fundamental challenges posed by transformation magic. The realization is both humbling and inspiring. Humbling because it reveals the limitations of any single cultural approach to these complex issues. Inspiring because it demonstrates the universal human capacity for serious ethical reflection about the use of power. Across all these different traditions, the common thread is the recognition that magical ability carries inherent responsibilities that require careful consideration. Your completed essay, sitting safely in your bag, now feels like the beginning of a much longer intellectual journey, rather than a finished product. The research you've conducted tonight has opened more questions than it has answered, created more avenues for investigation than it has closed. This is the hallmark of genuine education. It expands awareness of what remains unknown rather than simply filling gaps in existing knowledge. The comparative studies section includes several texts on magical pedagogy, examining how different educational systems approach the teaching of complex theoretical concepts. The diversity is remarkable. Some traditions emphasize memorization and repetition. Others prioritize experiential learning through guided practice. Still others focus on contemplative approaches that encourage students to develop personal relationships with magical concepts through extended meditation. Hogwarts' approach, you realize, combines elements from multiple pedagogical traditions while maintaining its own distinctive character. The house system creates communities of learning that support different intellectual styles. The emphasis on both theoretical study and practical application ensures that students develop comprehensive understanding. The freedom to pursue elective subjects allows for individual interests to flourish within a structured framework. Most importantly, the Hogwarts library system, with its open access to vast collections and supportive environment for extended study, creates opportunities for exactly the kind of transformative learning experience you've had tonight. The institutional commitment to supporting serious scholarship, even during unofficial hours, speaks to deep wisdom about how genuine education actually occurs. A soft chiming sound echoes through the library once again, marking another hour's passage in the outside world. The sound serves as a gentle reminder that time continues its steady progression, even in spaces that seem to exist outside normal temporal constraints. Yet rather than feeling pressured to conclude your explorations, you feel grateful for the reminder to savor these precious hours of unrestricted intellectual freedom. The Advanced Magical Theory section reveals additional treasures as you continue browsing. A collection of biographical studies examines the working methods of history's greatest magical theorists, revealing common patterns in how breakthrough insights actually emerge. Most revolutionary discoveries, according to these accounts, occurred not during formal research periods, but during quiet hours of reflection and synthesis. The pattern is remarkably consistent across different time periods and cultural contexts. Major theoretical advances tend to emerge when scholars create space for sustained contemplation, allowing their minds to make connections that remain invisible during more structured forms of investigation. The midnight hours, with their freedom from external pressures and social obligations, provide ideal conditions for this type of breakthrough thinking. These biographical accounts validate your intuitive sense that tonight's work represents something more significant than routine assignment completion. The extended period of focused engagement with complex ideas, the freedom to follow intellectual tangents, the gradual synthesis of information from multiple sources. All these elements mirror the working methods of scholars who made fundamental contributions to magical knowledge. Your transformation essay may never achieve the significance of truly groundbreaking research, but the process of creating it has introduced you to the cognitive patterns and working habits that characterize serious intellectual work. The discipline required for sustained concentration, the patience needed for careful source evaluation, the creativity involved in synthesizing disparate information into coherent arguments. These skills will prove valuable far beyond any single academic assignment. The library's collection includes several texts on the psychology of learning, examining how human consciousness engages with complex information. The research confirms what you've experienced tonight, that different cognitive processes become accessible during extended periods of focused study. The brain's capacity for making unexpected connections increases dramatically when freed from the constant interruptions that characterize normal daily experience. These psychological insights explain why so many significant intellectual breakthroughs occur during solitary work periods. The mind requires sustained engagement with challenging material before its deeper pattern recognition capabilities fully activate. Most educational systems, with their emphasis on scheduled class periods and fragmented attention, never create conditions that allow these more sophisticated cognitive processes to emerge. Your midnight study session has provided exactly the kind of extended, uninterrupted engagement that serious learning requires. The transformation from initial confusion about assignment requirements to comprehensive understanding of complex ethical frameworks demonstrates these deeper cognitive processes in action. The knowledge hasn't simply been absorbed, it has been integrated into your existing mental frameworks in ways that will influence future thinking. The Advanced Magical Theory section's crown jewel proves to be a collection of original research manuscripts donated by prominent magical theorists. These aren't polished publications, but working documents that reveal how breakthrough insights actually develop. The margins are filled with half-formed ideas, crossed-out hypotheses, and sudden flashes of understanding that redirect entire lines of investigation. Examining these primary source materials provides intimate glimpses into the minds of exceptional thinkers at their most creative moments. The messiness of the actual research process contrasts sharply with a clean, logical progression presented in final publications. Real intellectual work, these documents reveal, involves extensive exploration of dead ends, frequent revision of basic assumptions, and willingness to abandon promising approaches when better alternatives emerge. The lesson is both reassuring and challenging. Reassuring because it demonstrates that even the most accomplished scholars struggle with uncertainty and frequent revision during their research process. Challenging because it reveals the enormous persistence and intellectual courage required for truly original work. The polished essays and confident presentations that characterize academic success represent only the visible portion of much more extensive underground investigation. Your own evening's work takes on new significance when viewed from this perspective. The careful research, patient synthesis, and thoughtful analysis you've conducted mirror the working methods used by the field's most accomplished practitioners. The difference lies not in fundamental approach, but in scope and sophistication. The cognitive patterns you've developed tonight provide the foundation for engaging with increasingly complex intellectual challenges. The manuscript collection includes several texts that deal specifically with the ethics of magical research, examining questions that parallel those you've been exploring in relation to transformation magic. How do researchers balance the potential benefits of new knowledge against the risks of dangerous discoveries? What obligations do magical theorists have to consider the social implications of their work? How should the magical community regulate access to potentially hazardous information? These questions have particular relevance in a field where theoretical insights can translate directly into practical power. A breakthrough in theoretical understanding might lead to new spells or magical techniques that could be used for beneficial or harmful purposes. The researcher's ethical obligations therefore extend beyond the immediate investigation to encompass the entire range of potential applications for their discoveries. The parallel to transformation magic is clear. The theoretical frameworks you've been studying tonight don't exist in isolation from practical applications. Every insight into the nature of magical transformation could potentially be used to develop new techniques or improve existing ones. The ethical analysis you've conducted, therefore, represents not just academic exercise, but genuine engagement with questions that have real-world implications. This realization adds weight to your academic work while simultaneously making it more personally meaningful. The careful analysis of ethical frameworks isn't simply about earning good grades or demonstrating scholarly competence. It's about developing the moral reasoning skills necessary for responsible participation in the magical community. The theoretical understanding you've gained will influence how you approach practical magical work throughout your career. The manuscript collection includes several fascinating case studies of researchers who faced difficult ethical decisions during their investigations. Some chose to abandon promising lines of inquiry when they realized the potential for dangerous applications. Others developed elaborate safeguards to prevent their discoveries from being misused. Still others decided to publish their results despite acknowledged risks, believing that the benefits of increased knowledge outweighed the potential dangers. These historical examples provide concrete illustrations of the abstract ethical principles you've been studying. The theoretical frameworks take on new meaning when applied to specific situations where real people made difficult decisions with significant consequences. The case studies also reveal the complexity of ethical decision-making in research contexts, where competing values must be weighed against uncertain outcomes. One particularly compelling example involves a researcher who discovered a method for making transformation magic more efficient and less physically taxing. The technique could potentially benefit legitimate users, while simultaneously making it easier for malicious actors to perform harmful transformations. The researcher ultimately chose to publish the work, but included detailed warnings about potential misuse and recommended regulatory frameworks for controlling access to the technique. The case illustrates the kind of nuanced ethical reasoning that characterizes mature moral thinking. Rather than applying simple rules or avoiding difficult decisions entirely, the researcher carefully weighed competing considerations and developed a solution that balanced multiple legitimate concerns. The approach required both technical expertise and sophisticated ethical analysis. Exactly the combination of skills that serious magical education aims to develop. Your evening's work has provided excellent preparation for engaging with these kinds of complex ethical decisions in your own future career. The theoretical frameworks you've mastered provide tools for systematic moral reasoning, while the historical examples offer models for applying abstract principles to concrete situations. The combination creates a solid foundation for responsible magical practice. The library's atmosphere seems to deepen and intensify as you work through these weighty considerations. The floating candles burn with particular steadiness, their warm light creating perfect conditions for sustained concentration on difficult material. The silence has grown even more profound, creating a sense of complete separation from ordinary concerns and distractions. This perfect study environment represents one of Hogwarts' greatest gifts to its students: the opportunity to engage seriously with fundamental questions about knowledge, power, and responsibility. The library's extensive collections ensure that students have access to the full range of human thinking on these crucial topics. The supportive atmosphere encourages the kind of extended reflection necessary for developing mature perspectives on complex issues. Your completed transformation essay now feels like a milestone in a much longer educational journey, rather than simply another assignment to check off your list. The research skills you've developed, the analytical frameworks you've mastered, and the ethical perspectives you've gained will influence your approach to magical study for years to come. The evening's work has transformed not just your understanding of transformation magic, but your entire relationship with learning itself. The Advanced Magical Theory section reveals one final treasure as your exploration continues: a collection of interdisciplinary studies that examine connections between magical practice and other fields of human knowledge. The volumes demonstrate how magical theory intersects with philosophy, psychology, anthropology, and even the physical sciences in ways that enrich understanding across all disciplines. These interdisciplinary perspectives remind you that magical education, despite its specialized focus, connects to broader patterns of human inquiry and discovery. The ethical questions you've been exploring tonight have parallels in medical ethics, research ethics, and applied ethics across numerous professional fields. The analytical skills you've developed through magical study transfer readily to other domains of knowledge. This broader perspective on your education proves both humbling and empowering. Humbling because it reveals how much remains to be learned across all fields of human knowledge. Empowering because it demonstrates that the intellectual skills gained through serious magical study prepare you for engagement with virtually any complex subject matter. The capacity for sustained analysis, careful reasoning, and ethical reflection transcends any particular domain of application. As the night continues to deepen around you, the library seems to pulse with accumulated wisdom and infinite possibility. Your transformation from anxious student, worried about completing an assignment, to confident scholar, engaging with fundamental questions about knowledge and responsibility, represents exactly the kind of growth that magical education aims to produce. The evening's work has been transformative in the deepest sense, not just changing what you know, but changing who you are as a thinker and learner. The floating candles continue their steady illumination as you settle into contemplation of everything the night has revealed. Your completed essay rests safely in your bag, but the real accomplishment lies in the transformation of your own relationship with learning and knowledge. The midnight hours in the library have provided not just academic success, but genuine intellectual awakening, a gift that will continue enriching your life long after your formal education concludes. The profound satisfaction of intellectual growth settles into your bones as you remain nestled in the comfortable armchair, surrounded by the gentle glow of floating candles and the whispered promises of countless unread volumes. There's something addictive about this state of heightened awareness, this feeling that your mind has expanded to accommodate new ways of thinking about complex problems. The transformation you've undergone tonight extends far beyond the specific subject matter of your essay. You find yourself drawn to a section you've somehow overlooked during your earlier explorations, a collection devoted to the history of magical education itself. These texts chronicle the evolution of how magical knowledge has been preserved and transmitted across generations, from the earliest informal apprenticeships to the sophisticated institutional systems that exist today. The volumes reveal fascinating patterns in how different societies have approached the challenge of nurturing magical talent while maintaining appropriate safeguards. One particularly intriguing text examines the role of libraries in magical education, tracing their development from simple repositories of scrolls and tablets to the complex information ecosystems they represent today. The Hogwarts Library, according to this historical account, represents one of the most sophisticated examples of educational support infrastructure ever created. Its design reflects centuries of accumulated wisdom about how learning actually occurs. The author argues that truly effective magical education requires more than just access to information. It demands environments that actively support the cognitive and emotional processes involved in deep learning. The library's nocturnal atmosphere, with its perfect balance of solitude and connection, exemplifies this principle in action. The space doesn't merely house books. It creates conditions where transformative encounters with knowledge become possible. Reading about the intentional design elements that create this supportive environment helps you understand why tonight's study session has felt so remarkably productive. The temperature regulation that keeps you alert without being uncomfortable. The lighting systems that eliminate eye strain while maintaining perfect visibility. The sound dampening that creates profound quiet without complete isolation. Every detail has been carefully calibrated to optimize learning conditions. The historical perspective reveals that this level of sophistication didn't emerge overnight. Early magical libraries were often chaotic collections, housed in whatever spaces happened to be available. The gradual evolution toward purpose-built facilities designed specifically to support scholarly work represents centuries of experimentation and refinement. The modern magical library is essentially a highly advanced piece of educational technology, albeit one constructed from stone, wood, and enchantment rather than metal and electronics. Your appreciation for your current surroundings deepens as you consider the enormous investment of time, resources, and magical expertise that went into creating this perfect study environment. The floating candles alone represent sophisticated enchantment work that must be maintained and renewed regularly. The preservation charms protecting ancient texts require constant monitoring and adjustment. The environmental controls that maintain optimal temperature and humidity operate continuously without conscious oversight. All of this invisible infrastructure exists solely to support moments like the one you're experiencing now. Encounters between curious minds and accumulated wisdom that have the potential to generate new insights and understanding. The institutional commitment required to maintain such facilities speaks to a profound appreciation for the transformative power of learning itself. The history collection includes several biographical studies of famous library scholars, individuals who made their most significant contributions while working in environments similar to your current setting. The pattern that emerges is remarkably consistent. Breakthrough insights tend to occur not during formal instruction periods, but during quiet hours of independent exploration and reflection. These biographical accounts validate your intuitive sense that tonight's work represents something more significant than routine assignment completion. The extended period of unstructured engagement with complex ideas, the freedom to follow intellectual curiosity wherever it leads, the gradual synthesis of information from multiple sources. All these elements mirror the working methods of scholars who made lasting contributions to magical knowledge. The realization transforms your understanding of what you've accomplished tonight. Rather than simply completing another academic requirement, you've participated in a tradition of scholarly inquiry that stretches back centuries. The midnight hours you've spent wrestling with complex ethical questions connect you to countless previous students who chose learning over sleep, understanding over convenience. Moving deeper into the biography collection, you discover accounts of several magical theorists whose most important work emerged from late-night library sessions during their student years. The insights they gained through independent exploration often proved more significant than anything they learned in formal classroom settings. Their willingness to sacrifice immediate comfort for long-term understanding laid the foundation for careers that advanced the entire field. One particularly inspiring example involves a researcher whose doctoral thesis grew out of questions that first occurred to her during midnight study sessions in her school library. The casual exploration of tangential topics eventually revealed connections that no one had previously recognized, leading to theoretical breakthroughs that influenced magical practice for generations. Her story illustrates how apparently aimless intellectual wandering can sometimes produce the most significant discoveries. The biographical accounts emphasize the importance of creating space for this kind of unstructured exploration within otherwise demanding academic schedules. The pressure to complete assignments and prepare for examinations can easily crowd out the reflective time necessary for deeper insights to emerge. Students who learn to protect and cultivate these quiet hours often develop more sophisticated understanding than their peers, who focus exclusively on meeting immediate requirements. Your own evening's experience provides a perfect illustration of this principle. The transformation essay that brought you to the library has been completed successfully, but the real learning occurred during the additional hours you've spent exploring related topics without external pressure. The ethical frameworks you've encountered, the historical perspectives you've gained, the interdisciplinary connections you've discovered. All of these insights emerge through voluntary exploration rather than required study. The collection includes several texts that examine the psychology of creative insight, exploring the cognitive conditions that promote breakthrough thinking. The research confirms what you've experienced firsthand tonight, that significant intellectual advances typically require extended periods of focused attention, combined with freedom to pursue unexpected connections. The human mind appears to have two distinct modes of processing complex information. One mode solving, the other special excels at systematic analysis and logical problemizes in pattern recognition and creative synthesis. Most educational approaches emphasize the first mode while neglecting the second. The Midnight Library environment, with its unique combination of structure and freedom, creates ideal conditions for both modes to operate effectively. This psychological perspective explains why your understanding of transformation magic has evolved so dramatically over the course of the evening. The systematic research and writing you conducted earlier activated your analytical processing capabilities. The subsequent exploration of related topics allowed your pattern recognition systems to identify connections and implications that weren't apparent during more focused work. The interplay between these different cognitive modes produces the kind of integrated understanding that characterizes genuine expertise. Facts and concepts don't simply accumulate in isolated compartments, but form interconnected networks that enable flexible application to new situations. The ethical frameworks you've mastered tonight will influence your thinking about magical practice long after you've forgotten specific assignment requirements. A gentle rustling sound draws your attention back to the present moment. Somewhere among the towering stacks, pages are turning as another dedicated scholar pursues their own intellectual interests. The sound serves as a reminder that you're not alone in your commitment to learning, even during these unconventional hours. The library community includes all those who value knowledge enough to sacrifice immediate comfort for long-term understanding. The psychology collection reveals fascinating research about the social dimensions of solitary study. Despite working alone, serious scholars often report feeling connected to broader communities of inquiry that transcend temporal and physical boundaries. The shared commitment to learning creates invisible bonds between individuals who may never meet, but who participate in the same tradition of intellectual curiosity. This perspective transforms your understanding of your current solitude. Rather than being isolated, you're participating in an ancient and ongoing conversation about the fundamental questions that face anyone who seeks to understand the world through systematic inquiry. Every previous scholar who chose depth over superficiality, patience over haste, becomes your companion in this endeavor. The floating candles seem to burn even more steadily as you contemplate these connections, their warm light creating perfect conditions for continued exploration. The library's atmosphere has reached that perfect balance point where external distractions fade into irrelevance while internal focus achieves maximum clarity. These are the conditions that serious scholars throughout history have sought to create and protect. Your exploration leads you to discover a small alcove you hadn't noticed before, tucked away behind a particularly imposing collection of theoretical treatises. The space contains a single comfortable reading chair positioned to take advantage of optimal lighting from several floating candles. A small brass plaque mounted on the nearby wall commemorates this spot as the preferred study location of Adalbert Waffling during his student years. The connection to the scholar whose work you encountered earlier creates an almost mystical sense of continuity. Waffling sat in this very chair, wrestling with the same kinds of complex questions that occupy your attention tonight. The insights that eventually made him one of the most respected magical theorists of his generation may have first emerged during quiet hours spent in this exact location. Settling into the chair, you can almost feel the presence of previous occupants who used this space for serious scholarly work. The worn spots on the armrests speak to countless hours of concentrated study. The positioning of the chair suggests careful consideration of sightlines to relevant book collections. Even the height adjustment seems calibrated for optimal reading posture during extended work sessions. The physical environment creates an immediate sense of focus and purpose that transcends any particular subject matter. This is clearly a space designed for serious intellectual work, optimized through years of use and refinement. The very act of sitting here seems to activate deeper cognitive processes, as if the chair itself has absorbed the concentrated attention of its previous occupants. Your thoughts drift to the broader implications of what you've learned tonight about the relationship between environment and learning. The careful attention to physical details that characterizes the library's design reflects sophisticated understanding of how external conditions influence internal cognitive states. Temperature, lighting, acoustics, spatial organization, every element has been considered and optimized to support scholarly work. This level of environmental sophistication extends throughout Hogwarts, creating a campus-wide ecosystem that supports learning in all its forms. Classrooms are designed to facilitate different types of instruction. Common rooms provide spaces for informal discussion and collaborative work. The grounds offer opportunities for contemplation and reflection. the entire institution functions as an integrated educational environment. The reappreciation for the institutionalization deepens your wisdom that created and maintained such a comprehensive support system for learning. The investment required to construct and operate facilities of this caliber represents an enormous commitment to the value of education itself. Every detail speaks to a fundamental belief in the transformative power of knowledge and the importance of creating optimal conditions for its transmission. Your completed transformation essay, resting safely in your bag, now seems like just one small element in a much larger educational experience. The research skills you've developed, the analytical frameworks you've mastered, the appreciation for complexity you've gained, all of these represent lasting changes that will influence your approach to learning throughout your life. The biographical accounts you've been reading emphasize that the most successful scholars learn to create their own optimal study conditions, regardless of external circumstances. They develop sensitivity to the environmental factors that enhance their cognitive performance and actively seek out or construct settings that support serious intellectual work. Tonight's experience has provided invaluable training in recognizing and utilizing such conditions. The awareness of how physical environment influences mental state will serve you well in future academic endeavors. More importantly, you've developed appreciation for the kind of sustained, focused attention that serious learning requires. The psychology texts reveal that this capacity for sustained concentration represents a learnable skill rather than an innate talent. Like physical fitness, intellectual focus improves with regular practice and deteriorates without use. The discipline required for extended study sessions builds cognitive muscles that enhance performance across all types of mental work. Your evening in the library has provided excellent training in this crucial skill. The ability to maintain focus for hours while working through complex material will prove valuable far beyond your current academic setting. Whether pursuing advanced magical studies or applying your knowledge in professional contexts, the capacity for sustained intellectual effort will distinguish your work from that of less disciplined practitioners. The candles continue their steady illumination as you contemplate the broader significance of your midnight study session. What began as anxiety about completing an assignment has evolved into appreciation for the fundamental processes that drive intellectual growth and discovery. The transformation reflects not just increased knowledge about transformation magic, but deeper understanding of how learning itself actually works. This metacognitive awareness, understanding your own thinking processes, represents one of the most valuable outcomes of serious education. Students who develop insight into how they learn become more effective at directing their own intellectual development throughout their lives. They can identify optimal study conditions, recognize when they need to adjust their approaches, and take responsibility for their own continued growth. The library's extensive collection of educational psychology texts confirms the importance of this kind of self-awareness. The most successful students aren't necessarily those with the highest natural ability, but those who develop sophisticated understanding of their own learning processes. They become expert managers of their own intellectual development, capable of adapting their methods to meet the demands of increasingly complex material. Your evening's work has provided excellent practice in this kind of self-directed learning. The decisions you've made about how to structure your time, which resources to consult, and how to synthesize information from multiple sources all reflect growing sophistication in managing your own educational experience. These metacognitive skills will prove increasingly valuable as your studies advance and formal guidance becomes less available. The floating candles seem to pulse with renewed energy as dawn begins to approach in the world beyond the library's walls. Their steady glow has provided perfect lighting throughout your extended study session, adapting automatically to maintain optimal conditions as external light levels change. The seamless adjustment illustrates the sophisticated magical engineering that makes such intensive study possible. Time in the library flows differently than in the ordinary world, measured not by clock hours, but by the rhythm of intellectual discovery and growth. Your transformation essay may have required only a few hours to complete, but the broader learning experience has occupied the entire night in the most satisfying way possible. The investment of time has yielded returns that will compound throughout your educational career and beyond. As you prepare to eventually return to your dormitory, you carry with you not just a completed assignment, but a transformed understanding of what serious learning actually involves. The ethical frameworks you've mastered will influence your approach to magical practice. The research skills you've developed will enhance your work in other subjects. Most importantly, the appreciation you've gained for the transformative power of sustained intellectual engagement will guide your approach to lifelong learning. The library's nocturnal magic has worked its subtle influence, transforming an anxious student into a confident scholar through the simple but powerful combination of access to knowledge and time to engage with it deeply. This transformation represents the fundamental purpose of educational institutions like Hogwarts. Not merely to transmit information, but to nurture the kinds of minds capable of advancing human understanding through their own contributions. Your midnight hours among the books have provided a glimpse of what such contributions might look like, and the profound satisfaction that comes from participating in humanity's ongoing conversation with the mysteries of existence. The candles burn on, ready to illuminate the next scholar's journey into the depths of knowledge and understanding. The gentle pull of approaching dawn creates a subtle shift in the library's atmosphere, though the enchanted windows maintain their mysterious twilight that has cradled your studies throughout these precious hours. You realize, with a mix of satisfaction and reluctance, that your extraordinary night of learning is drawing toward its natural conclusion. The transformation from anxious student to confident scholar feels complete, yet there's an almost magnetic quality to this space that makes leaving feel like abandoning a sacred ritual. Rising from Waffling's commemorative chair, you stretch muscles that have grown pleasantly stiff from hours of focused concentration. The movement feels ceremonial somehow, marking the transition from deep study back toward the ordinary rhythms of student life. Your completed essay rests securely in your bag, but the real treasure you're carrying is the transformed relationship with learning itself that has emerged through these midnight hours. The floating candles respond to your movement with subtle adjustments in their positioning, maintaining optimal lighting as you begin a final circuit through the sections that have become so familiar tonight. Each area holds memories of discoveries made and insights gained. The Transfiguration section, where you began your work, now feels like an old friend. Its books no longer intimidating, but welcoming. The Advanced Magical Theory collection continues to pulse with promise for future exploration. Its complex texts no longer purely daunting, but representing achievable challenges. Your footsteps whisper against the Persian rugs as you make your way toward the circulation desk, where a small collection box allows students to leave notes of appreciation for the library staff. Drawing out a piece of parchment, you write a brief message thanking whoever maintains the floating candles and preservation charms that made tonight's extended study session possible. The note feels inadequate to express your genuine gratitude, but the gesture seems important nonetheless. The restricted section draws your attention one final time, its chained volumes seeming slightly less forbidding after your evening of serious scholarly engagement. Perhaps someday, when your studies have advanced sufficiently, you'll gain access to those dangerous texts. The thought doesn't intimidate you as it might have earlier in your academic career. Tonight's work has demonstrated that complex knowledge becomes manageable through patient, systematic engagement. A soft sound catches your attention, the whisper of pages turning somewhere deeper in the stacks. Another dedicated scholar is still at work, pursuing their own intellectual interests in the library's supportive embrace. The sound serves as a reminder that learning never truly stops, that curious minds will always find reasons to seek knowledge during the quiet hours when distractions fade and focus deepens. You discover a small memorial plaque you hadn't noticed before, mounted discreetly near the entrance to commemorate students who made significant contributions to magical knowledge during their time at Hogwarts. The name spans centuries, connecting you to a long tradition of scholarly achievement that began in these very halls. Reading the inscriptions, you feel a profound sense of continuity with the generations of learners who preceded you. The library's organizational system reveals new layers of sophistication as you observe it with the enhanced awareness that serious study has provided. Books seem to shift slightly on their shelves, moving to more accessible positions when students demonstrate genuine interest in their subjects. The card catalogues update themselves automatically as new materials arrive. Even the floating candles appear to learn individual preferences, providing slightly different lighting conditions for different types of work. Your appreciation for the invisible infrastructure that supports learning deepens as you consider the enormous coordination required to maintain such a complex system. House elves work quietly throughout the night, reshelving returned books and maintaining the environmental conditions necessary for preservation of ancient texts. Magical cleaning systems operate continuously but silently, ensuring that centuries of accumulated dust and debris don't interfere with scholarly work. The preservation charms themselves represent sophisticated magical engineering that most students never consciously notice. Temperature and humidity controls prevent the degradation that would otherwise make ancient texts unreadable. Pest deterrent spells protect parchment and binding materials from insects and rodents. Light filtering enchantments prevent the fading that would gradually erase crucial information. All of this complex magical technology exists solely to support moments of learning and discovery, like the one you've experienced tonight. The institutional commitment required to create and maintain such facilities speaks to a profound understanding of education's transformative power. Every candle flame, every preserved page, every carefully maintained reading area represents an investment in the future of magical knowledge. The circulation area includes a display case containing some of the library's most treasured acquisitions. First edition texts by legendary magical theorists, manuscripts with annotations by famous scholars, rare volumes that exist in only a few copies worldwide. These aren't just valuable artifacts, but living documents that continue to influence magical thinking centuries after their creation. One particular manuscript catches your attention, an early draft of a treatise on magical ethics with extensive marginal notes in multiple hands. The document reveals how scholarly ideas develop through collaboration and debate rather than emerging fully formed from individual minds. Previous readers have added their own insights and criticisms, creating a layered conversation that spans generations. The site reinforces your understanding of scholarship as fundamentally collaborative enterprise, even when pursued in solitude. Your own midnight research has drawn upon the work of countless previous thinkers, each contributing pieces to the larger puzzle of understanding magical ethics. The essay you've completed adds your voice to this ongoing conversation, however modestly. Moving toward the library's main entrance, you pause for one final look at the vast space that has been your home for these transformative hours. The towering shelves stretch into shadow above, creating natural cathedrals dedicated to different branches of human knowledge. The reading areas maintain their perfect balance of privacy and connection, supporting both solitary concentration and awareness of the broader scholarly community. The floating candles continue their steady illumination, ready to support the next student who chooses learning over sleep, understanding over convenience. Their warm glow creates pools of possibility throughout the space, each one an invitation to intellectual adventure and discovery. The sight fills you with profound gratitude for institutions that make such experiences possible. Your transformation essay may be complete, but your relationship with the library has evolved into something that will endure throughout your remaining years at Hogwarts and beyond. This space has revealed itself as more than a repository of books. It's a sanctuary where minds can grow and flourish, where the pursuit of knowledge becomes a form of meditation, where students can discover their own capacity for serious intellectual work. The heavy oak doors open silently at your approach, their ancient hinges well maintained despite centuries of use. Stepping into the corridor beyond feels like emerging from a different world, one where time moved according to the rhythm of thought rather than the demands of schedules. The contrast is jarring but not unpleasant, simply a reminder of the special nature of what you've experienced. The castle's nighttime corridors stretch before you, lit by torches that burn with less sophisticated enchantment than the library's floating candles, but still provide adequate navigation lighting. The familiar route back to your dormitory feels different now, as if your expanded understanding of magical theory has enhanced your appreciation for even basic enchantments. Portraits along the walls remain mostly asleep in their frames, though a few nod politely as you pass. These painted figures have observed countless students making similar journeys after late-night study sessions, their presence creating a sense of continuity with generations of learners who walked these same halls. The accumulated wisdom of centuries seems to permeate the very stones. Your footsteps echo softly against the ancient flagstones, creating a gentle rhythm that matches your contemplative mood. The sound serves as a meditation on the persistence of learning, how knowledge passes from one generation to the next, through individual moments of discovery and understanding like the one you've just experienced. The house common room will be empty at this hour, its fireplace burning low, but still providing warmth for any students who might return from their own scholarly adventures. The familiar furniture and decorations will seem somehow different. Intellectual transformation. View after your evening through eyes that have gained new appreciation for the complexity underlying seemingly simple concepts. Your dormitory awaits with its comfortable bed and promise of well-earned rest. Sleep will come easily after the satisfying exhaustion that follows extended mental effort. Dreams may well continue the evening's intellectual explorations, processing and integrating the insights gained through hours of careful study and reflection. But first, there's the simple pleasure of walking through Hogwarts in the deep night hours, when the castle settles into its most peaceful rhythms. The building seems to breathe around you, its magical systems operating with the quiet efficiency of centuries of refinement. Every stone and timber contributes to an environment designed to nurture young minds and support the advancement of magical knowledge. The transformation you've undergone tonight extends far beyond any single assignment or subject area. The research skills you've developed will enhance your work across all disciplines. The ethical frameworks you've mastered will influence your approach to magical practice throughout your career. Most importantly, the appreciation you've gained for serious intellectual engagement will guide your relationship with learning for the rest of your life. You, the library, have provided more than academic midnight hours in success. They've offered a glimpse into the profound satisfaction that comes from pursuing knowledge for its own sake. This experience will serve as a touchstone in future moments when the demands of coursework threaten to overwhelm the joy of discovery. You'll remember these quiet hours when learning felt like meditation, when understanding emerged naturally from patient engagement with complex ideas. The memory of floating candles and whispered page turns will call you back to the library on future nights, when assignments feel burdensome or concepts seem impossibly difficult. You've discovered that the most challenging material becomes manageable through sustained attention and systematic exploration. The confidence gained through tonight's work will support you through increasingly advanced studies. As you make your way through the familiar corridors toward rest and dreams, you carry with you the transformed understanding that represents education's true purpose. Facts and theories matter, but the deeper goal is developing minds capable of engaging thoughtfully with complexity, of reasoning through difficult problems, of contributing meaningfully to humanity's ongoing conversation with the mysteries of existence. The library's gift extends beyond any particular body of knowledge to encompass the very process of learning itself. You've experienced firsthand how sustained intellectual effort can lead to genuine insight and understanding. This awareness will influence every future encounter with challenging material, whether in academic settings or the broader contexts where knowledge meets practical application. Your completed essay rests in your bag, but the real achievement lies in the cognitive transformation that has prepared you for whatever intellectual challenges await. Tonight's work has demonstrated that serious learning requires not just access to information, but the patience and discipline to engage deeply with complex ideas. These insights about the learning process itself may prove more valuable than any specific contented. The floating you've masked candles burn on in your memory. Their steady after specific assignments are glow, symbolizing the enduring nature of genuine education. Long forgotten, the habits of mind you've developed through experiences like tonight's will continue shaping how you approach new problems and opportunities. The Midnight Library has worked its subtle magic, transforming not just what you know, but how you think about the very process of coming to know. The corridor walls seem to pulse with their own gentle rhythm as you walk. The ancient stones, holding memories of countless students who have made this same journey from library to dormitory, create a soft echo that mingles with nights of deep study. Each footfall, along with the distant settling sounds of the castle, forms a symphony of academic dedication that has played out for centuries in these hallowed halls. You pause at one of the tall windows that line the corridor, drawn by the subtle change in light that suggests dawn is still hours away, but no longer an impossibility. The glass is old and slightly warped, creating gentle distortions in the view of the grounds below. Frost patterns have formed along the edges, their delicate crystalline structures catching what little light filters through the darkness. The site reminds you of the intricate theoretical frameworks you've been exploring, beautiful, complex, and requiring careful observation to fully appreciate. Your reflection in the window glass shows a student transformed by the night's work. The anxious uncertainty that marked your expression earlier has been replaced by something deeper, a quiet confidence that comes from genuine understanding rather than mere memorization. Your eyes hold a different quality of focus now, the kind that emerges when someone has pushed through surface-level comprehension to grasp the underlying patterns that govern complex subjects. The transformation isn't just intellectual, but almost physical. You stand straighter, move with more purpose, carry yourself with the dignity that comes from knowing you've accomplished something meaningful. The completed essay in your bag represents hours of careful work, but more importantly, it symbolizes your growing capacity to engage with the kind of sophisticated analysis that distinguishes true scholars from simple students. Continuing along the corridor, you notice details that escaped your attention during the hurried journey to the library earlier this evening. The portraits that line these walls aren't random decorations, but carefully chosen representations of individuals who made significant contributions to magical education. Their painted eyes seem to follow your progress with approval, as if recognizing a kindred spirit in someone who values learning enough to sacrifice sleep for understanding. One particular portrait catches your attention, a witch in elaborate robes who appears to be holding an ancient text. Her expression combines wisdom with a hint of mischief, suggesting genuine joy, someone who found in the pursuit of knowledge. A small brass nameplate identifies her as Professor Artemisia Clearwater, noted for her revolutionary work on the integration of theoretical and practical magical education. Her painted lips seem to curve in a slight smile as you pass, offering silent encouragement to a fellow midnight scholar. The castle's magical heating systems maintain perfect comfort levels throughout these corridors. Another example of the sophisticated infrastructure that supports student life at Hogwarts. The temperature regulation isn't just about physical comfort, but about creating optimal conditions for learning and reflection. Too cold, and students would hurry through these halls without noticing the educational opportunities embedded in every architectural detail. Too warm, and the drowsiness would prevent the kind of alert observation that transforms ordinary spaces into learning environments. Your footsteps carry you past a series of alcoves, each containing small displays related to different aspects of magical history and theory. These aren't formal exhibits, but subtle educational elements integrated into the castle's everyday environment. One alcove contains a collection of ancient wand-making tools, their worn surfaces speaking to centuries of craftsmanship. Another displays samples of parchment made from various magical creatures, each type optimized for different kinds of spell work and record keeping. These casual encounters with magical artifacts and historical objects represent another layer of Hogwarts' educational philosophy. Learning doesn't occur only in classrooms and libraries, but permeates every aspect of the environment. Students absorb knowledge through constant exposure to the tools, materials, and symbols of magical practice. The entire castle functions as an immersive educational experience that operates continuously, even during the most mundane activities like walking to and from study sessions. The realization deepens your appreciation for the institutional wisdom that created such a comprehensive learning environment. Every element has been carefully considered and positioned to maximize educational impact. The portraits provide inspiration and historical context. The architectural details demonstrate principles of magical construction and design. Even the arrangement of corridors and staircases creates opportunities for chance encounters and spontaneous discussions that can spark new insights. Your enhanced awareness allows you to perceive connections between the evening's research and the physical environment you're moving through. The ethical frameworks you've been studying apply not just to transformation magic, but to every aspect of how magical institutions like Hogwarts operate. The decisions about which portraits to display, which artifacts to preserve, which educational approaches to emphasize, all reflect value systems that prioritize certain kinds of knowledge and ways of thinking over others. The corridor ahead branches into multiple directions, each path leading to different areas of the castle. The choice of route becomes a small meditation on decision-making and the way individual choices accumulate into larger life patterns. Your decision to spend the evening in serious study rather than socializing or relaxing represents the kind of choice that shapes character over time. Each of mind that will influence how you approach future challenges, and such decision reinforces habits, opportunities. Taking the left branch toward your house's section of the castle, you notice how the architectural style shifts subtly to reflect the particular value scheme's house. The color and traditions associated with your decorative motifs, and even the purport your house prizes. The characteristics of doorways and windows create an environment that reinforce most highly. These design elements work subconsciously to shape behavior and identity, making students feel connected to their house's historical legacy while encouraging the development of associated virtues. The magical portraits in this section of the castle are particularly relevant to your house's traditions, featuring individuals who exemplified the qualities most valued by your founders. Their painted presence serves as both inspiration and gentle accountability, reminding students that they're part of a long tradition of achievement and service. The subtle pressure to live up to these examples becomes a positive force that encourages personal growth and academic excellence. Your understanding of how environment shapes learning extends beyond physical spaces to encompass the social and cultural dimensions of educational experience. The house system creates smaller communities within the larger school, providing both support and healthy competition. The prefect system gives older students opportunities to develop leadership skills while providing guidance for younger ones. The entire social structure operates as a complex educational mechanism that teaches valuable lessons about responsibility, cooperation, and personal development. These another dimension of the insights about institutional design and social organization represent has occur learning that tonight. Your research into your ability to analyze how power transformation magic ethics has enhanced structures and value systems operate in various contexts. The analytical frameworks you've mazed from individual relationships to complexity can be applied to understanding everything, dense as you approach the organizational dynamics. The corridory area containing your house's common room and dormitories. The increased space creates a sense of arrival and belonging, marking the transition from public areas to the more intimate spaces where house members gather and form lasting friendships. The architectural psychology demonstrates sophisticated understanding of how physical environments influence social behavior and community formation. The entrance to your common room comes into view, its familiar guardian waiting patiently for your return. Whether portrait, riddle-asking knocker, or other magical security system, the entrance mechanism represents another layer of the educational experience. These guardians don't just protect access, but create daily opportunities for students to demonstrate knowledge, creativity, or other house-valued qualities. The brief interaction required for entry becomes a small ritual that reinforces identity and belonging. Approaching the entrance, you feel a complex mix of emotions. Satisfaction at having completed challenging academic work successfully, etude for the institutional, grad support systems that made tonight's learning possible, anticipation for future opportunities to engage with complex ideas and challenging material. Most of all, a deep sense of contentment that comes from knowing you've used your time well and grown as both a student and a person. The password or response required for entry feels different now, imbued with additional meaning after your night of serious study. The words aren't just arbitrary security measures, but affirmations of your connection to your house's values and traditions. Speaking them aloud serves as a small declaration of identity and commitment to the ideals your house represents. The common room Bayom, be quiet, at the entrance will, this hour. Its atmosphere of the usual social activity that transformed by the absence characterizes daytime hours. The furniture will seem more substantial somehow, as if the serious purpose of education has settled into the very fabric of the space. The fireplace will burn low but steadily, providing just enough warmth and light to welcome returning scholars without disrupting the peaceful atmosphere. Your footsteps will whisper across familiar rugs and polished floors as you make your way toward the dormitory stairs. The journey will feel ceremonial, marking the completion of an important phase in your educational development. Each step will carry deserved rest, while you closer to simultaneously moving you forward along the path toward becoming the kind of scholar and practitioner your education is designed to produce. The dormitory will offer the perfect conclusion to your extraordinary. The comfortable night of learning will welcome your tired body, while your mind continues processing the insights gained through hours of careful study. Sleep will come easily, bringing dreams that may well continue the evening's intellectual explorations in the mysterious realm where conscious learning meets unconscious integration. But for now, there remains the simple pleasure of moving through these familiar spaces with enhanced appreciation for their role in your education. Every element of your environment has contributed to tonight's transformation, from the library's floating candles, to the corridor portraits, to the subtle architectural details that create optimal conditions for learning and reflection. Your completed transformation essay represents far more than successful completion of an academic assignment. It symbolizes your growing capacity to engage with complex ideas, to reason through difficult problems, to contribute meaningfully to ongoing scholarly conversations. The research skills you've developed will serve you throughout your academic career and beyond. The ethical frameworks you've mastered will influence how you approach magical practice in professional settings. Most importantly, you've discovered the profound satisfaction that comes from serious intellectual engagement. This awareness will draw you back to the library on future nights when the demands of coursework threaten to overwhelm the joy of discovery. You'll remember these quiet hours when learning felt like meditation, when understanding emerged naturally from patient attention to complex ideas. The floating candles burn on in memory, their steady glow representing the enduring nature of genuine education. Long after specific assignments are forgotten, the habits of mind developed through experiences like tonight's will continue shaping how you approach new challenges and opportunities. The Midnight Library has worked what you know, but how you think about its subtle magic, transforming not just the very process of coming to understand. Your journey through the castle corridors draws toward its conclusion as the entrance to your house area comes fully into view. The familiar architectural details welcome you home after your intellectual adventure, but you return as a changed person. The student who left earlier this evening carried anxiety about completing an assignment. The scholar who returns carries confidence born of genuine understanding and appreciation for the transformative power of serious learning. This transformation represents the fundamental purpose of institutions like Hogwarts, not merely to transmit information, but to nurture minds capable of engaging thoughtfully with complexity, of reasoning through difficult problems, of contributing meaningfully to humanity's ongoing conversation with the mysteries of existence. Your midnight hours among the books have provided a glimpse of what such contributions might look like, and the profound satisfaction that comes from participating in this ancient and noble tradition. The memory of your library sanctuary will remain vivid long after tonight's work fades into the broader tapestry of your educational experience. The floating candles, the whispered page turns, the profound silence pregnant with possibility. all will serve as touchstones for understanding what serious learning actually requires and what rewards it offers to those willing to invest the necessary time and attention. As you prepare to cross the threshold into your house's private spaces, you carry with you more than completed homework. You bear the transformed understanding that represents education's deepest purpose, the enhanced capacity for analytical thinking that will serve you throughout your life, and most importantly, the recognition that learning itself can be a form of meditation, a path toward wisdom, and a source of profound personal satisfaction. The journey from library to dormitory has been both a simple walk through familiar corridors and a symbolic passage from one stage of intellectual development to another. Your footsteps echo softly against ancient stones as you approach the guardian of your common room, ready to speak the words that will grant you entry not just to physical space, but to the next phase of your educational journey. Your common room unfolds before you like a gentle embrace, transformed by the profound quietude that only exists in the deepest hours of night. The familiar space has taken on an almost sacred quality, its usual bustling energy replaced by something far more contemplative and serene. The dying embers in the great fireplace cast dancing shadows across the stone walls, their warm amber glow creating pockets of comfort that seem to acknowledge your return from intellectual pilgrimage. The furniture appears more substantial somehow, as if the weight of accumulated study and reflection has settled into the very fabric of the room. Armchairs that during daylight hours buzz with conversation and laughter now sit in dignified silence, their worn leather surfaces gleaming softly in the firelight. These pieces have supported countless students through their own academic trials, their cushions shaped by generations of young scholars seeking comfort after long nights in the library's embrace. You pause in the center of the room, allowing yourself a moment to absorb this transformation. The tapestries hanging on the walls seem to pulse gently with their own inner light, their intricate patterns revealing details that daylight somehow obscures. Each thread appears to tell part of a larger story about knowledge, dedication, and the patient pursuit of understanding that characterizes the finest magical education. The house tables scattered throughout the space bear the subtle evidence of earlier study sessions. Ink stains that speak of hurried essays, worn patches where countless textbooks have rested, small scorch marks from experiments that didn't quite go as planned. These marks aren't flaws, but badges of honor, testament to the serious academic work that happens here during the quiet hours when distractions fade and focus deepens. Moving toward the dormitory stairs, your footsteps create the softest whisper against polished stone floors. The sound seems to resonate with the rhythm of learning itself, each step marking progress along the path toward deeper understanding. The staircase curves gently upward, its smooth banister worn smooth by countless hands seeking guidance during their own journeys between study and rest. The walls along the stairway display a carefully curated collection of academic achievements from students past and present. Not the flashy accomplishments that draw public attention, but the quieter victories that speak to genuine intellectual growth. Outstanding essay awards, research project recognitions, acknowledgements for innovative thinking in challenging subjects. These modest displays create an atmosphere of scholarly aspiration that encourages current students to pursue excellence in their own work. Your dormitory door comes into view, its familiar brass nameplate catching the light from enchanted sconces that line the corridor. The soft illumination has been carefully calibrated to provide just enough visibility for safe navigation without disrupting the sleep of students who chose rest over study tonight. The magical engineering, represents another example of the thoughtful infrastructure that supports academic life at every level. The door opens silently at your touch, revealing a space that feels like a personal sanctuary after hours of public scholarship. Your bed waits with crisp linens and pillows that promise the perfect conclusion to an evening of intellectual triumph. The other beds in the dormitory are occupied by housemates who made different choices about how to spend these midnight hours. Their peaceful breathing creating a gentle soundtrack of contentment. Your trunk sits at the foot of your bed, its sturdy construction and practical design reflecting the no-nonsense approach to education that characterizes serious magical learning. Opening it quietly, you carefully place your completed essay inside, positioning it among your other academic materials with the respect it deserves. The parchment feels different now, weighted with significance that extends far beyond its physical properties. The transformation you've undergone tonight extends into every aspect of your dormitory experience. Your school robes, hanging on their designated hook, seem to carry traces of the library's scholarly atmosphere. The books scattered across your nightstand appear more inviting now, their subjects no longer intimidating, but presenting opportunities for future exploration. Even your quills and ink bottles take on new significance as tools of intellectual discovery rather than mere writing implements. Settling onto the edge of your bed, you begin the quiet ritual of preparing for sleep after serious academic work. Each movement feels deliberate and meaningful, from removing your outer robes to arranging your personal belongings for tomorrow's activities. The simple actions become meditative, allowing your mind to process the evening's insights while your body gradually releases the focused tension that sustained hours of concentrated study. The dormitory windows reveal the first subtle hints that night is slowly yielding to dawn, though true sunrise remains hours away. The glass panes are decorated with frost patterns that create natural works of art, their delicate crystalline structures reflecting the same intricate beauty you discovered in the theoretical frameworks you explored tonight. The site serves as a gentle reminder that complexity and elegance can coexist in both natural and intellectual realms. Your fellow students sleep peacefully around you, their dreams perhaps filled with the subjects they studied earlier or the adventures they shared with friends. Their presence creates a sense of community that enhances rather than diminishes your personal satisfaction with the evening's solitary work. Individual achievement becomes more meaningful when it occurs within a context of shared commitment to learning and growth. Drawing back your bed covers, you appreciate the perfect temperature and texture of Lynn's domesticans maintained by the castle magic. The house elves, who ensure student comfort, work with the same dedication to excellence that characterizes the librarians who maintain perfect study conditions. Every aspect of Hogwarts life reflects institutional commitment to creating optimal environments for learning and personal development. As you slip beneath the covers, your body immediately recognizes the transition from active engagement to restorative rest. The physical relief of horizontal positioning after hours of sitting and writing feels luxurious, but it's accompanied by mental satisfaction that makes relaxation even more complete. The combination of intellectual accompl conditions for the deepishment and physical comfort creates perfect, restorative sleep that serious scholars require. Your head touches the pillow with a soft sigh of contentment that seems to encompass the entire evening's journey. From anxiety about incomplete assignments to confidence born of genuine understanding, from surface-level engagement with required reading to deep appreciation for the ethical complexities of magical practice, from individual isolation to connection with centuries of scholarly tradition, the transformation feels both dramatic and natural. The dormitory's gentle sounds create a soothing symphony that begins to carry you towards sleep. The soft breathing of your roommates mingles with the distant settling of ancient stones and the whisper of wind through enchanted corridors. These familiar sounds, which might have seemed ordinary earlier in your academic career, now feel like part of a larger magical ecosystem designed to support every aspect of student life. Your thoughts drift naturally toward tomorrow's possibilities. Classes that once seemed routine now appear as opportunities to apply the analytical frameworks you've mastered. Conversations with friends take on potential for deeper intellectual exchange. Even leisure activities might benefit from the enhanced appreciation for complexity and nuance that serious study provides. Tonight's work has created ripple effects that will influence every aspect of your educational experience. The completed essay in your trunk represents far more than successful completion of an academic requirement. It symbolizes your growing capacity to engage with sophisticated ideas, to reason through challenging problems, to contribute meaningfully to ongoing scholarly conversations. The research skills you've developed will enhance your work across all subjects. The ethical frameworks you've mastered will influence your approach to magical practice throughout your career. Sleep begins to claim your consciousness with the gentle inevitability of natural processes. Your breathing deepens and slows, matching the peaceful rhythm that characterizes restorative rest after meaningful work. The transition from waking awareness to dream state feels smooth and natural, unforced by anxiety or incomplete obligations. Every aspect of the evening's work has been completed to your satisfaction. Dreams may well continue the night's intellectual explorations in the mysterious realm, where conscious learning meets unconscious integration. The insights gained through careful study often reveal their full significance during sleep, when the mind processes and organizes new information without the constraints of directed attention. Tomorrow morning may bring additional understanding that emerges from this nocturnal synthesis. The floating candles in the library burn on in memory, their steady glow representing the enduring nature of genuine education. Long after specific assignments are forgotten, the habits of mind developed through experiences like tonight's will continue shaping how you approach new challenges and opportunities. The Midnight Library has worked its subtle magic, transforming not just what you know, but how you think about the very process of coming to understand. Your breathing settles into the deep, regular pattern that signals complete relaxation and approaching dreams. The physical exhaustion that follows sustained mental effort combines with intellectual satisfaction to create perfect conditions for restorative sleep. Your body releases the last traces of tension, while your mind continues processing the evening's discoveries at levels below conscious awareness. The dormitory fades around you as sleep claims your attention, but the lessons of the night remain embedded in your consciousness. You've discovered that learning can be a form of meditation, that understanding emerges naturally from patient engagement with complex ideas, that the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake provides profound personal satisfaction. These insights will influence your approach to education throughout your remaining years at Hogwarts and beyond. The profound quiet that surrounds your descent into sleep reflects the same quality of silence you discovered in the library's nocturnal embrace. It's not empty silence, but silence pregnant with possibility, filled with the accumulated wisdom of centuries and the promise of future discovery. In transformation from Ankh stillness, this perfectious student to confident scholar reaches its natural conclusion. Your final conscious thought carries gratitude for institutions that make such experiences possible, for the invisible infrastructure that supports serious learning, for the opportunity to participate in humanity's ongoing conversation with the mysteries of existence. The midnight hours among the books have provided more than academic success. They've offered a glimpse into the profound satisfaction that comes from dedicating yourself fully to the pursuit of understanding. Dreams begin their gentle work of integration and synthesis, weaving together the evening's insights with your existing knowledge to create new patterns of understanding. The ethical frameworks you've mastered will influence tomorrow's thinking in ways you cannot yet imagine. The research skills you've developed will enhance future academic work across all subjects. Most importantly, the appreciation you've gained engagement will guide it for serious intellectual, your relationship with learning for the rest of your life. The transformation is complete, but the journey continues. Tomorrow will bring new challenges and opportunities to apply what you've learned. The library will call to you again on future nights, when the demands of coursework threaten to overwhelm the joy of discovery. You'll remember these quiet hours when learning felt like communion with the deepest mysteries of existence, when understanding emerged from fromity and dedication. In the patient marriage of curios, the perfect stillness of deeped by the gentle sleep, surround breathing of fellow scholars, and cradled by centuries of accumulated wisdom, you rest in the knowledge that tonight's work has changed you in fundamental ways. The floating candles burn on in the library, ready to illuminate the next student's journey into the transformative depths of serious learning, while you dream of ethical frameworks and theoretical possibilities, of midnight revelations, and the profound satisfaction that comes from choosing understanding over convenience, depth over superficiality, wisdom over mere information. The night's magic works its final transformation as consciousness yields to the restorative power of sleep, carrying you into dreams where the boundaries between student and scholar, between learning and being, dissolve into the timeless rhythm of intellectual growth and personal transformation that defines the very essence of magical education. The depths of sleep embrace you with the gentle inevitability of tides, carrying your consciousness into realms where the evening's scholarly discoveries continue their quiet work of integration. In dreams, the ethical frameworks dance with theoretical possibilities, weaving themselves into the very fabric of your understanding in ways that conscious study alone could never achieve. The library's floating candles appear in your sleeping mind, not as mere illumination, but as beacons guiding you through landscapes of pure knowledge, where concepts take physical form and wisdom flows like streams of liquid starlight. Your breathing settles into the profound rhythm that marks truly restorative sleep, the kind that only follows genuine intellectual accomplishment. Each exhale releases the last traces of academic anxiety, while each inhale draws in the satisfaction of work completed with integrity and care. The dormitory cradles you in its familiar embrace, the ancient stones of Hogwarts humming with centuries of similar scholarly triumphs achieved by students who chose understanding over ease. In the mysterious realm between waking and sleeping, your mind begins the delicate process of cementing tonight's insights into permanent memory. The transformation magic ethics you've mastered don't simply rest as isolated facts, but begin forming connections with everything else you've learned throughout your magical education. Philosophy intertwines with practical application, historical precedent merges with contemporary relevance, creating rich networks of understanding that will influence your thinking for years to come. And as the first pale light of dawn begins to touch the enchanted windows of the castle, your midnight transformation reaches its gentle conclusion. The anxious student who entered the library hours ago has emerged as something more, a scholar who has tasted the profound satisfaction that comes from choosing depth over convenience, understanding over sleep. Your completed essay rests safely in your trunk, but the real magic lies in how this night has changed the the very way you approach learning itself. The floating candles burn on, ready to illuminate another seeker's journey, while you drift into dreams filled with ethical frameworks and theoretical possibilities, carrying with you the timeless truth that sometimes the most powerful magic happens not with wands and spells, but in the quiet. Communion between a curious mind and the accumulated wisdom of ages.